Well, hello everyone, and it's a absolutely beautiful, beautiful morning in the Masai Mara in Kenya. We are with, as I said, the Musketeer Coalition of Cheetah. They kept us busy last night, that's for certain, and they've also kept us busy this morning. We actually haven't been able to change over cameras, but we can zoom out. I can say hello quickly. Oh, the presenter cam's working. Oh, hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott. VM's on camera, and it's great to have you with us. We had quite a hectic night last night. The boys didn't sleep as they usually did, and I've been telling VM it's by far the most active we've been out of all the nights we've spent with them. They kind of kept moving up and down until about 10:30 at night, and then we slept until about 2:30, and they got up and started moving basically up and down until now. So it's been quite a long night, but certainly worthwhile because of the beautiful images we're about to show you. We got some great silhouettes of them playing around that tree there just before you joined us, and also walking along this ridge as the sun rose from the depths. So certainly worth the time spent with them. It was also a very, very cold evening last night. The wind was blowing the blankets off us. It was a bit of a thing, but all part of the adventure. Now, because the silhouette shots are no longer an option, I am going to get onto the sunny side of them so that you can see them a little bit better. And I'll just take a moment to show them to you, and then we'll be sending you several thousand kilometers south to Djuma, where Tristan is out and about. Let's just show you one quick look of these incredible beasts with the sun in our favor. Interestingly, they walked past this very same area on Saturday during the TV show, and previous to coming here now, they went past the tree that one of them jumped up. Or was that last week's TV show? Definitely wasn't this week's TV show. It was the week before. Or was it a Facebook Live the day before? It's all turning into a blur, but it's been certainly wonderful to have you guys along with us as we follow this coalition of 5 male cheetah. We're going to wait for them to get up and about again, and in the meantime, send you down to Tristan.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our sunrise safari from down here in South Africa. And what an epic way it seems as though it started up in Kenya with Scott and his cheetahs and a rising sun. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Senzo, and we are going to be out and about on Djuma to go and look for any signs of, well, anything that we can find. I think we're going to start off though and try and see if we can't follow up on Shongile from last night, so we can just spend a little bit longer than what we had yesterday. It was a very brief sighting right at the end, so we're going to try and see if we can't find her. So I'm heading down towards Twin Dams, which is where she was heading last night. Right, it is live, it is interactive, which means hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube chat should you want to ask questions or just say hello from wherever you're watching from. I am heading down to Twin Dams so far. I've been quiet this morning. It's windy, a lot windier than what it has been, which means is an ominous sign. I'll start to talk the right way at some point today. Who knows why I can't speak this morning, but anyway, eventually it'll come right. It's just got to get it going. So it's very windy, which is an ominous sign that there's a cold front on its way, which sometimes can influence the behavior of animals a little bit. So we'll just check around to see for Shongile, and then from there, probably head towards the western boundary, see if there are any signs of shadow or the Inkahumas. Definitely want to try and pop in at the hyena den this morning as well, see how they're faring. And, well, anything else that we can come across. Some hardy-dars that are flying over at a rapid pace to my left, making a bit of noise. But it's been a quiet evening. We haven't heard too much. Well, I certainly didn't hear too much. Didn't hear any lions vocalizing or leopards or alarm calls or anything like that. It's the first night in a while that we actually haven't heard any of the Birmingham boys filling the air with their roars. Tinyo, I did hear him when I just got back to camp. I could hear him calling from near Buffelshoek where we were looking for him, but I think he went further north into Buffelshoek itself. Now, a very interesting sighting that I saw online with the Birmingham male and one of the Matimba males, which I will get into a little bit later. But for now, let's go across back to Kenya and to Mr. Hendry so he can say good morning to all of you.
Good morning everybody. It's lovely to have you with us here in the very cool and, shall we say, dust-infused dawn of the Masai Mara. My name is James Hendry. On camera today is Fergus Jazz Hands Clark.
Hello.
Show us your jazz hands.
Okay.
There they are. There they are. Wonderful. What we're doing out here at the moment is looking for the Agama pride and their cubs. We haven't seen them for some time. The wildebeest seem to have moved off from their area. They'll most certainly be back here. But we're trying to find a way around their sort of favourite drainage line area, their favourite laga, if you like. And at the moment it would seem that we are going to have to travel most of the way, well, to the Indian Ocean before we'll be able to get round it and come back. But it's a very pleasant trip as we go. There's a harrier over there, Ferg. Making sun. No, that's a vulture, in fact. So there's quite a lot going on here. You can ask us any questions or comments. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Otherwise, you can just use the chat in the YouTube stream. And there seems to be a group of vultures on the ground there, feeding on something that has passed on. I wonder what it was. I'm going to go with wildebeest. Anyway, so that is the state of play today. It's a very pleasant morning. It's probably sitting in at around, I'd say about 16 degrees Celsius. That's 61 Fahrenheit at the moment down here on the valley floor, I think. I have my beanie hat on, but shortly it will be replaced with a sun hat because the sun in this area is very bright indeed. Let us continue. It's very nice and quiet. It's very peaceful. There are... I'm going to show you this. Hang on a second. There, if we look over the top there, you can see sort of 4 or 5 of what are probably upward of 50 balloons that fly around here during the course of a morning. Scott counted them the other day. He counted 50 balloons floating in the air. Well, obviously they were floating in the air. It would have been very inconvenient if they had been sort of dragging along the ground. But it really does seem to be a very good business indeed to have a balloon safari company. Fergus, maybe we should go into balloon safaris. We could call it Jazz Hand Balloon Safaris. I bet we'd get a... I bet that domain name has not been taken. Alright, let's head back to Tristan in the south of the continent and find out what heartbeats he's looking for.
Now, we've just gotten towards Twin Dams at the moment. So far, no sign of any tracks for little Shongile. She was heading sort of in a southeasterly direction, so she might not have actually even come to Twin Dams. It was just a hunch that she might head this way. So I'm slowly but surely driving, checking, making sure there's no sign of her tracks. It's a bit difficult at the moment because it's still quite dark. The sun hasn't come up over the horizon just yet. It should do so in the next few minutes. So what I'm going to do is try and just check around the dam wall area, see if there isn't any sign here, and if there's nothing, then I'm going to check the fire break going westwards towards where we had her last night. She was south of Treehouse Dam but heading east from when we left her. As you can see, Twin Dams is looking as beautiful as ever. It's still full of water, and it's not exactly full, but it's got enough water that I think it's going to last into the summer, which is great news for all concerned. I'm sure many elephants and varying other animals are quite happy about that, considering that last year it was touch and go, I think, for Twin Dams to dry up or Twin Dams to dry altogether. So it means that at least it's held a bit more water this year, which is fantastic. Now, I was just sitting for a second and listening because I thought I heard a lion roaring, but it wasn't. Charlie, one, you want to know, do we know how far she's ventured away from her area? I suppose you mean from her natal territory in terms of where her mom used to take her. Well, the answer to that is she hasn't ventured anywhere outside of where Kruger used to walk. So the furthest north Shongile is seen is just on the other side of Biffel's cut line, which is where Kruger did go a few times. So she might have taken them up there once or twice, and then she spends most of her time on Djuma and into Little Gowrie a little bit. So she's not actually moving outside of her mom's territory. In terms of how much she moves during a day or a night, that's anyone's guess at this stage. We don't see enough of her to really know her movements that well. I was talking last night to Chantal about it, and I was saying that it's interesting that she's been here the whole week in Djuma, and yet we've only found her once. The other time she was found was because there was 2 leopards and she kind of popped up in amongst all of that and was then chased off, and since then we haven't seen her. Even though she was here for 6 days, there wasn't even a footprint for her over that time, so she's able to sneak around and hide, and so it's difficult to know where she's actually moving and how far she's moving on a day-to-day basis. But we'll try and see. I mean, today will be a perfect example to see how far she's gone, if we can try and find at least tracks and work out where she's gone from there. But she's most certainly is flying under the radar, which is fantastic, because at the end of the day she's a young leopard. She's small. She needs to be able to try and avoid these bigger females that are around in the form of Thandi and Shadow. Right, now while I search for a spotted cat here in Djuma, let's go back to Scott with his beautiful spotted cats and the rising sun.
A leopard down south on Djuma. Now, it'll be very interesting to see what these guys get up to this morning. I was explaining to Wildebeest a little bit about their Thursday evening. They made a kill. Some of you joined us live for that on Facebook. And then on Friday night, at about 7:45, so in the cover of pitch darkness, they made another kill. Both of similar-sized wildebeest, the youngsters that were born in around January, February in the southern Serengeti in Tanzania. So a decent meal for all 5 of them. There's no two ways about that. But what's interesting is that they are killing on average every 24 hours, and it has been 24 hours since they made their last kill. We were told that they killed a wildebeest yesterday. I'm guessing it was quite a big one, judging by how full their bellies were, but they've already moved quite some distance from where we had them yesterday. I'm guessing they've moved about probably close on 8-9 kilometers now, around 6 miles, so they've certainly burnt off a little bit of the wildebeest that they've been feeding on. The zebra that you can see in the foreground, I do not think are a likely item of prey for them. They've showed no interest in them so far. Hello to James. You're interested to know. Let's get us into a better position here. I'm not giving VM much to work with here. James, you would like to know if I think this kind of nocturnal behavior is normal. What do you need there, Wildy? All good? I'm back at the main cam now. This is all quite confusing. We've gone from thermal flares and a low light camera. We've just swapped cameras to our daytime camera, so I no longer need to use the presenter camera, which is down here, so I can look at you up there. I'm getting the hang of this slowly. There's a hyena approaching. Apologies, James, I will also answer your question. Off in the back. Yes, I certainly think that cheetah behave nocturnally in other parts of Africa, not just here. Having said that, though, this is the perfect environment for cheetah to move around relatively safely after dark, because it's so open, which makes it very easy for them to detect problem animals like lion, leopard, and hyena. Now, in this case, I'm guessing this hyena is going to come quite close in to make sure that they don't have any meat nearby. The hyena's got no idea how long they've been here for, and it would be unwise to pass up a good investigation to make sure these cheetah, like I said, do not have a meal. And if the hyena comes too close, what may happen is the cheetah may hiss and snarl at it. They may even chase it. Let's try and get into a better spot again, seeing as though we can't see anything from here. Oh, it's so nice to have the sun on our faces and our bodies after what was a very cold night out there. We haven't packed away our mattresses yet. We just put them under the windscreen when we got up in quite a hurry at around 2:33. It's quite a thing waking up having lost the subjects of your adventure, having to try and relocate them. But via them, and we're already back in sync. This looks like a young hyena, still in very good nick, and the spots are still very, very prominent. And because it is a bit of a youngster, maybe that's why it's not going too close to the cheetah. It's a little bit cautious. But let's give it some time. Maybe its inquisitive nature will push the boundaries a little bit. Interestingly, one of the other stories I was telling VM is that on the nights we've spent out with these guys, lots of hyena often come up and check out that there's no easy meals lying around, and usually it's a fairly peaceful affair. As long as they realize that there's no meat, there's nothing for either party to lose or gain, so it's a kind of neutral affair. And on one occasion, Jean-Andre said there was a hyena that actually just plonked itself down and had about a half an hour snooze right next to the cheetah, basically in their little cuddle puddle. They do like to cuddle, these boys. Well, last night they weren't very cuddly, which is interesting because it was cold, and we do feel like they're going through a little bit of a rift. The coalition may split up, which would be terrible because they are the business at the moment, being 5 of them. It's a large coalition. They have been recorded in the past this large, but it's not very common. Hello to Lauren. You would like to know if it is common for a female cheetah to raise 5 cubs to adulthood. Ooh, there we go. Well done, Via. I didn't even know what was going on there. So now, because there's nothing to lose here, you see, it was just a neutral affair. The hyena comes in, sniffs about, no hard feelings, just checking for an easy meal. Of course, if there was food there, the cheetah would be a little bit more disgruntled. They would probably give in, even just... And yes, it is possible. They can give birth to large litters and, of course, then, with luck, raise them. But these 5 are not all brothers. We're not exactly sure how this coalition was made up, but there's clearly 2 larger individuals and 3 slightly smaller ones. We're guessing the 2 larger ones could be brothers and the 3 smaller ones could be brothers, but I am going to try my best to get to the bottom of this and spend some time with the researchers. The only catch is by spending time with the researchers, it means I'm not spending time with these cheetah, which means we cannot share their activities with you. So I'm kind of banking the cheetah for now and putting the homework off. So forgive me. But I feel the more time that we spend with these animals, the more incredible action we will be able to share with you. VM and I intend on spending about 50 hours out, only popping into camps to reload coffee and food and then straight back into the field. And that way, by this time tomorrow evening, I am almost certain we would have been able to share a kill with you. The only thing preventing that, or a hunt at least, the only thing preventing that would be signal, but they are in a decent signal area now. They've moved out of the dodgy area they were in yesterday. Hello to Michael. You were wondering if I think the size of this coalition has an influence or impact on the amount of nocturnal movement that they get up to. And yes, I mean, I guess so. I haven't spent enough time with cheetah to make any calculated or accurate kind of guesses or estimates with regarding questions to them, so I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. But I think, I mean, if we liken ourselves to these guys, if I was alone, I would not want to walk around after dark. If I had 4 friends with me, I would be more inclined to. So I think definitely the fact that there is a large presence, more eyes, more ears, increased security from that, means that they are more prone to move at night. And the other cheetah that we have spent time with, I mean, we haven't spent many nights out with other female or with other cheetah, but I have noticed that the females have been very sleepy from about 8 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. But again, that was on the very few encounters or times that I have spent time with the ladies. So watch this space. I intend on spending as much time possible with these incredible creatures in the coming weeks and months. But for now, you are learning alongside me.
Now, unfortunately, a few little gremlins have crept in there, so I do apologize about that. But isn't it exciting that Scott gets to spend so much time with those cheetahs? They seem to be absolutely phenomenal in the way that they go about their business, and there's been some crazy stuff already seen from them. And I must admit, I'm a little bit jealous of the time that Scott has spent with those cheetah brothers, because they just seem to be unbelievable value in terms of what we see. Now, the bad news, since you left us shortly after we went across that side, we found the tracks for Shongile going south, or what I think is Shongile going south. The tracks look quite big but for her, but I haven't seen her for a while and haven't actually tracked her for a while, so I don't know if her feet have grown a little bit and that's why it just appears a bit odd. But certainly there is a female leopard that has crossed south just on the western side of Tundam, so it must be her. In terms of the leopards that we had here yesterday, there was no tracks for Tandi coming northwards since she was last seen down south of Chitwa, so I would imagine that it must have been Shongile's tracks. But nonetheless, I'm still checking around Treehouse anyway, just in case. You never know, maybe there's some other sign. We also know that Shadow was around and maybe she's moved a little bit and managed to get herself going a bit more. These elephants have caused havoc here. They've pushed over so many trees. We're going to try and get Rusty's aerial through this area. But there was no sign. We didn't actually get to see either of them. We only saw them the day before. But we're going to try and see if this morning we don't head roughly in that direction, and maybe we will get lucky and be able to find her. But what we do have right now is a big giant orange ball of sun that is coming through the trees, which I'm going to stop for now. Senzo, just give me... Yeah, I'm going to go forward and try and see if we can't actually see it properly. Let's see, what about... Oh, we're going to have to go a little bit further, Senzo. From where we are now is not the greatest view of the sun. As you can just see, it's just coming through, but I think if we go a little bit further forward, we might be lucky. Let's see. You want to stop here, Senzo? There, how's that? There we go. You can see it just coming up between the marulas and bush willows and varying other tree species that we have here in the Sabi Sands. And there it is. Look at that. There we go. Beautiful, and I'm quite glad to see that sun. And it's a little bit, the wind is quite cold this morning, so the sun will certainly at least heat things up a little bit. But there is definitely a front coming. The way that this wind is blowing and the coldness of the wind is not like what we've had over the last week, where it's been fairly warm and the wind in the morning has been a nice, pleasant, warm temperature. This morning is a very different feel to it, so I'm sure the Cape Town is bringing us a cold front slowly but surely. Kobe, who's 15 years old. Kobe, you want to know if there's been any hyenas in the camp? Kobe, without doubt, every single night. They are always in the camp. We find their tracks coming in and out. The other day, the bin was found that we have for the kitchen. They managed to get hold of that, and we found it about 300-400 meters outside of the camp. So they come in every single night, and we have to lock everything away and make sure that they don't steal things, but they are there. So I'm sure it's Gwen and Ruben that are coming and sniffing around looking for any little morsels that they can eat so as to provide nutrient-rich milk for their young ones. But most certainly we do see them, and I'm sure when Taylor's back we will start to see videos again of the antics of our hyenas in camp, because she seems to be an insomniac, and so she films these poor hyenas as they get up to no good in our camp most nights. Right, now that we've admired the sun coming up, which is really just a absolute, well, I can't even think of the word this morning, compulsory act to admire the sun coming up. And while we do that, let's go across to James, who seems to have found some cats of his own this morning.
Yes, we have found the Agama pride with the aid of a parked vehicle here, and there they all are. You can see them there. In fact, they're not all there at all. It is 3 lionesses, I think, and a couple of the cubs. I'm sure the rest of them are in the laga. I don't know why I find it so difficult to say the word laga. I suppose it's because it's not a word that is familiar to me, and it feels a little twee just tossing it in there. Anyway, laga, for those of you who don't know, ditch basically, and there's a ditch here that they spend a lot of their time in, this pride of lions. There are no wildebeest around here. They did kill one yesterday and eat it. I've seen the remains thereof, and so I think they're probably all in fine health. But what is interesting is that I think that there are only, are there 2 or 3 lionesses here?
2.
I think there are 2 lionesses. I think you're right. So the other 2 are somewhere around, possibly, might be even here, might be even in here. Ah, yes. But there doesn't seem to be much hunting going on, and as it's already starting to get a bit warmer, I don't think they're going to do a huge amount. So let's spend a bit of time here, and then we'll press on down to the south and see if we can't find something else. It is the most beautiful morning, it really is. It's very special to be out here. And although yesterday I wouldn't describe the day that Fergus and I had as roundly successful, from a broadcast point of view, we drove through some magnificent areas, and so just being out here during the daytime is a great pleasure, even if it is you looking at the back end of a flat cat. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Agama pride consists of 4 lionesses and 13 cubs. And we've made a long story about the fact that they've been waiting for the migration and how they coped without it and blah blah. It's been so desperate. Fish paste, fish paste. I've come to think that we've spoken a little bit of rubbish on that score. I think that these lions do very well in the absence of the migration. I think there's a huge amount of food around all the time, and that the migration time is simply more of a bonus than it is a time that they absolutely need. I think the lions are the other side there. Should we move the other side there? A little cub stalking buffalo, that's quite fun. Michael, you're wondering about whether or not these animals will follow the migrating herds. Will lions go out of their territories to follow migrating herds? The answer is no, they will not. You will, however, find nomadic male lions, which could easily follow herds. This is fascinating. This lion cub is stalking buffalo. I mean, it's not going to kill a buffalo, I don't think. It is fascinating. Left the others. You know, the safety of this ditch is always at hand. But I mean, a buffalo will kill a lion cub, we know that. There it goes. Just down through there. Sneaking down into the ditch. round the side of the bush. There are a whole lot more lions there, and they're looking at... Is that English? There are a whole lot more lions. No, there is a whole lot more lions, or there are some more lions. Let me just get the other side of this vehicle, and then we'll be able to get a head-on of these cubs that have, very ambitious ideas of what they're going to be able to kill. If they want to kill buffalo, they need to move to the Sabi sands, don't they? There we go. Is that right, folk? There are quite a few in there, aren't there? Watching the buffalo walking slowly closer and closer, which is quite fun. And there are the beefies. And as I've said a few times before, I don't think these lions kill buffalo very often here, if at all, because they don't have to. There's so much else to eat. And there's so much else that is, shows less enthusiasm for Leocide, shall we call it. I made that up, Fergus. Do you like that word? Leocide. Leocide. The killing of Leos. Ooh, going down into the ditch. That beef. This is going to be quite interesting. I see the cubs are beating, not a hasty retreat, but certainly a tactical retreat. I don't think the buffalo are aware of them yet. But we have watched these cubs running from buffalo fairly often in this area. They sort of set themselves up on a termite mound or somewhere around here with an easy escape route, and then they wait and they watch. And even from this young age, their fascination and curiosity with a potential prey item almost overwhelming. Now, Tony, as I just said, you want to know how many members of the pride there are. There are 4 lionesses and 13 cubs. And I don't know where the other 2 lionesses are. We've seen 2 of them so far. And we've seen, I think, 4 cubs so far of different ages. The youngest probably born around, at least oldest probably born around February, and the youngest born just a few weeks ago. Yeah, the cubs are now moving off in towards the Laga. And just to let you know, this is a non-off-roading zone, so we can't sort of drive in after them, but we've still got a nice view. I'm watching the buffalo to see what they do. There's a tiny little buffalo there. If the adults see that, well, they'd probably think about it. They'd be very silly, because the adults would not tolerate it. I've been astounded by the lack of willingness of the wildebeest to defend themselves, and I've spoken quite extensively over the months about animals that have both male and female with horns and why that should be the case, and the only explanation I can come up with is that they're used for defense. But I have yet to see, I've seen one wildebeest turn on one of those male cheetah, and other than that, the wildebeest don't seem to do much defending. They just seem to run around in blind panic and become eaten or dead. Ferg, I think you're being stalked.
A buffalo.
No, not by a buffalo, by a small lion. Is this? Oh, let me move. Shall I move slightly? You're right. Very pretty indeed. Breeze blowing still from north to south. northeast, actually. Yeah, northeast to southwest today. So excuse the sound now, I'm just fixing my microphone. Here they're coming round to see. You see something you might want to eat there, chaps? 3 ages, I think, there. The oldest one in the middle, and 2 very little ones just behind that. Another one coming, so that'll be total to 5. I just don't want to start the car now. I think they might get a bit of a fright. Little ones are walking straight towards the road. I am going to move very slightly. Are you ready? There is a vehicle there, obviously you can see. Those are just tourists, much the same as you would see at Djuma. And they should just pop out the other side of that bush. The buffalo moving now to the other side of us. There they come. Hello, he's the little leader of the gang. I think that's wonderful. Tony, you want to know how many pounds of meat a lion cub can eat? Tony, it rather depends on the age of the lion cub, I suppose. A 1-week-old lion cub won't eat any meat at all. A lion cub up to, say, a year-old, which probably weighs in the region of, what should we say, a year-old lion, probably 50 kilograms or so, 110 pounds, can eat probably 20% of its body weight. So 20% of 100 is, unsurprisingly, 20. So probably about 20 pounds of meat for a year-old cub, all the way down to 0. That little one there that you're looking at is probably about 6 months old. And it will grow exponentially from here. They grow very slowly almost until they're about this age, and then they get bigger very quickly. And the one behind there, just about, what should we say, about 8 weeks old now? Maybe a bit older than that, actually. I'm not sure those are the very smallest ones. I'm just fascinated by watching the buffalo moving. Buffalo not vaguely concerned, all of them now crossing over this ditch. Deciding, probably a little bit like the wildebeest, that the grass is greener on the other side. Smallish herds of buffalo here that I've seen. Now, this one's probably about 55 strong. It doesn't move very far from this area. It kind of lives in an uneasy equilibrium, I suppose, with the Agama pride. There's one checking us out, smelling a bit of lion, thinking those people smell a little bit like lion. Don't think I like that. Alrighty, apparently we're going to go across to Tristan now, because he has got the home of a scavenger. That little cub.
Well, there's one very windswept vulture sitting atop its nest at the moment. No sign of the little chicks. Thank you to all of those that did send me photos that there were chicks here when Byron saw them the first time. So there are chicks in this nest. I don't know how many. I don't know how big they are just yet. But there you go. The vulture's popping its head up. It was having a bit of a nap. But they do sometimes do this. They tuck their heads next to their wings or under their wings, and then they just kind of hunch up into a ball as they try and keep those chicks warm, particularly on a day like today where the wind is so cold. It's not easy for little ones to stay nice and warm, so they need their adult's body heat as she sits on top of them and next to them, and it will allow a bit of heat to then go off onto the little chicks as well. So she's still sitting, or he's still sitting, pretty much flat on the nest. So I don't know if the chicks are maybe on the other side, but it's difficult to see. We've been sitting for a little bit now, and I've been trying to see if I can't see any sign of those little white heads. Remember, the chicks are almost fluffy white, snowy color, so you should easily be able to see them when they pop their heads up. They normally appear quite contrasted against the nest itself, but I would imagine maybe it's a little bit on the chilly side for them to be too active just yet. They will use this nest year after year, so we'll find that hopefully again next year that they do use it, if they are successful, if nothing gets into it. The problem with this nest is that it's very exposed, and I have seen leopards going after birds of prey chicks in nests. So there's been leopards that have taken fish eagles and battalier eagles, and they go up and they will easily be able to get to this particular nest. So it's going to be interesting to see if that nest is not raided at some point by one of our spotty predators. There's also things like genets and civets that are a danger, so these vultures are going to have a tough time of it to keep those chicks safe in such an open tree, and also one that's easy to climb. It's a marula tree and a perfect tree to climb for a leopard. Vegas Beauty Snob, you're wondering if it's male or female vulture that cares for the eggs. It's both. So I'm surprised that we're not seeing the other adult here. I generally see the other one sitting close by on one of the trees, but both of them will help in keeping those eggs warm, or keeping their chicks warm, and you'll find that they'll have a situation where they'll both spend time doing the parent duties. It's not just one or the other, which is fairly typical of a lot of birds. There's a lot of birds that do it. Now, she will probably be more maternal, or paternal, shall we say, towards those offspring, and probably do a lot more in terms of keeping them warm and sitting for long periods of time. But she too needs to feed, so she'll find that she'll take off and go and try and find food, and while she does that, then the male will sit and look after the little ones. Like I say, hopefully it'll be successful. The chances of two surviving are very slim. It's generally only one, and the reason why is because the stronger sibling will kill the other one out of just sheer competition. It will want food, and it will want to be able to get the maximum amount from the mother, and so it just picks off the weaker one and gets rid of it, so as it can actually get food for itself. Very cool. Alright, vulture, we'll stay relaxed and not too windswept today. It seems as though this vulture is otherwise going to have a tough day of being blown around. But you'll find once it gets a little sunnier and there's enough warmth to actually keep the chicks warm enough with the sun, she'll then maybe take off and go and try and find food. It must have been quite nice when that buffalo carcass still had something on it that the Nkuhumas killed, because it wasn't a very long flight to be able to get to food. Now, I believe Scotty is still with his spotted cats, and I'm sure they are getting to the point where they're going to start having a little snooze, so let's go across and see how they're doing.
Well, I am hoping that they change their current state, but I've got a feeling that they may be bunkered down here for quite some time. They moved a lot during the night last night, and they must be loving basking in this morning sunshine. Sounds like you guys have been having a grand safari with both James and Tristan via coffee and food before coming back out, and we haven't come to any conclusions yet. Just enjoying the beautiful morning. What I'm also hoping to find out is any other reports on other cheetah. A couple of weeks ago we had great luck. I still remember seeing 12 cheetah in about 12 hours in 4 different groups. It was obviously these 5, then Malaika and her 2 cubs, that's 8, 2 single females on their own, and then 2 sisters together. So there are a lot of cheetah that move through this general area. The 2 sisters are quite an interesting story, because according to the researcher, she's quite interested in that. They've been spending quite a long time together since they left their mother, and they should have, in theory, gone their own way. So it seems like there is a female coalition, but I must be careful of what I say here because I don't want to start any rumors, which I've just done. So cancel what I've just said. But wouldn't that be nice? And it is just a nice story that these two sisters are enjoying helping one another get to grips with life without mom. And as I said, it will be interesting to see how long that lasts. It probably won't last too much longer, but the researcher is already saying that she's surprised by how long they have stuck together. Hello to Anna Marie. I'm happy that you love the name of this coalition, the Musketeers, and you'd like to know how they got that name. I guess it's quite a popular name. You'll probably, there's a coalition of male lion also called the Musketeers within the Masai Mara, so there's two different species with the same name in one place, and I'm fairly confident in many other African wilderness areas you will have that name used. I'm not too sure why exactly it has become so popular, but like you said, it does roll off the tongue, and it does give them an impression of being quite formidable, which they certainly are. Speaking of their name, I was told by somebody else that they are called, I can't remember who it was, I think it was a guide. And again, it's just an emphasis to the fact that in wilderness areas, you often get the same animals given different names by different people. I was told by somebody else that these are not the Musketeers, that these are in fact the NASA coalition of cheetah. So, not sure how speed that they can move at, the same as the rockets that they send to space. Space cheetah. Hello, Joshua. You would like to know how big is the territory of the cheetah? Yet, again, if I finally find some time to do some homework and sit with the researchers, they will be able to give us a clearly plotted map. One of these cheetah has got a radio transmitting collar which sends a signal at 6 o'clock every morning. This isn't over here. His name is Dartonian. I'm sure the others all have names. I just haven't been able to work out who's who yet. But they are easy to distinguish within reason. And I'm sure a lot of you guys, the viewers, who are leopard ID experts, will be able to very quickly apply those skills to identifying these different boys. Now, I'm guessing, Josh, their territory is about 20 square miles. Just judging from the little time I've spent with them and the areas I've seen them move relative to where they can go. But maybe I'm kind of underestimating. Maybe it's closer to 30 or 40 square miles. However, we will be able to get to the bottom of that once we find some time to do some homework and less in-the-field action, which tends to be my first preference for obvious reasons. This week we've only got a very few people in camp. We've only got a couple of cam ops or 3 cam ops, 2 presenters, Lou and Bex holding down the FC on their own, and there's more people on holiday than there are in the field. They're all enjoying the coast. Of course, I nearly forgot Jake, who's a new addition to our team. Wonderful to have him on board. So yeah, we're a little bit short-staffed at the moment while people are... We're going to focus on bringing you this live action rather than going and doing homework, I think. Good. We are going to send...
Well, Scotty, we've also got very few people in camp at the moment. In fact, there's just 5 of us, so it's all very quiet this side. Hopefully it will get a lot louder in a few days' time, because Taylor will be back, and the amount of noise that is made in camp will certainly escalate tenfold when she gets back. So we're also down to just a few people in the camp as well. Now, I'm just on the new road at the moment because there were reports of a male leopard track crossing into Vuyatela, and also audio for that male leopard calling in this area. So it's close to where we were tracking Shadow yesterday afternoon, but still no sign of any tracks, and I haven't heard any audio myself. So I'm just slowly going along and having a little look around and just trying to see where these tracks could go. We know if it's Tingana, then, well, this guy moves so fast that it's good sometimes just to try and see if we can't find him using his sound, but otherwise it's going to be quite difficult to see where he went. I also don't know exactly where the tracks crossed over. I believe that somewhere just north of Gari main side, which means that nothing that I've seen so far coming out. So what I might do is just do a loop around Zoe's and see in case I missed a track somewhere. But the nice thing about this new road is that it's quite puffy and sandy, so tracks tend to stand out quite nicely in this particular area. But exciting nonetheless to know that there is a male leopard somewhere around here, close by. It will be very exciting if we can find him, that's for sure. Problem is we're driving into the sun, so I can't see a thing other than on to my left and right. And even the tracks are difficult to see when the sun is right in your eyes as it is now. We're just checking all the termite mounds as we drive along, just in case Shadow is still sitting on top one of them. It's particularly in this morning light, she might be just trying to get a bit of sun just to warm up after a coolish evening. So it wouldn't be surprised me if we found her on top of a mound somewhere. Be nice to find her with the cub and to see her walking better. That would certainly put a lot of our minds at ease, I would imagine. I know a lot of you are very concerned about it, and well, hopefully it will just be something that she'll be able to walk off and it'll eventually be okay. No sign of any leopard though that I can see walking along here. Must be still inside this block. Now this block is not very big, so I'm surprised if there was a leopard that was here that it didn't just cross over and move quite quickly past here and into towards Zoe's. It's from here to Triple M is very, very short. It's not a long way at all. So I would have thought we would have picked up some sort of sign of it, unless he just went straight over and I missed his track, which is also possible. This road is quite narrow, which means there's not a sort of verge on the edge that I can see nicely while I'm driving in case there is a track crossing. It makes it a little bit tough. Everything's quite tight on this road. Now we're just going past the repeater, checking there. Seen Shadow on that termite mound at the base of the repeater before, so always worth checking that mound as well when going past. Other than that, it seems fairly quiet animal and bird wise. I haven't seen too many birds this morning either, other than our vulture sitting on its nest. It's been it's still morning. There hasn't been too much in the way of noises or calls. I wonder if maybe it's just the wind has got something to do with that. Everybody's waiting for it to get a little warmer before they actually start to get a bit more active. Tad, you said a few days ago it looks a lot worse from up in the air. From up here, I mean from down here, it looks fairly dry, but when you see it from the air you realize just how dry it is at the moment, and it is looking a bit desolate. Nothing like what we saw last year though. Last year was just a whole nother level of desolation. It was just this area that we're in now was all just dust. There was no grass growing at all. Even the trees themselves almost took on a much sort of bleaker look. Maybe it was because of all the dust that it looked so bad, but it certainly is better off than we were last year, that's for sure. Last year's drought was crazy in comparison to even this year. But no tracks of shadow that I can see here, so I don't think she's been moving around this side. She might have gone towards Zoe's. The reason why now I'm going towards Triple M is I just want to try and work out where this male crossed, so that I can get a better idea of where I'm actually looking, because if I don't know where he's crossed, it's quite tough to work out. You know, it's a long section, this, between Impala Plains and Gowrie Main. It's not exactly close, so it's going to be tough to see what's going on. Now, what tracks are these? No, those are not tracks that we need to look at. This is the last tracks that I had for the cub, though, was in this particular section that we're in now. So the cub seemed to have played around in this area, and I wonder if she hasn't called it and they've now moved off out of this particular section. We should be able to find her footprints, though, if she did. No, nothing there. Just also checking all these trees, because the cub itself will climb trees just for safety if mom's not around. So sometimes you can spot little leopards just lying up in the trees somewhere. Especially, like I say, if mom's not around. Impala Plains. But I wonder where this male leopard could be. Donna, you're wondering how long last year's drought lasted? Well, it started the year before, basically. It started to get very dry, and then we had a very hot, very dry summer, which is unusual for us. Just checking that this leopard didn't go this way. Very hot, very dry summer, which led to a lot of evaporation, which dried out a lot of the dams. It also basically just burnt this landscape and got rid of all of the vegetation. And then we had a warmish winter, and then we went into our summer months, and again it didn't rain much at all, and that meant that we had very, very bad drought. So it lasted about 2 years, and it's still going to a degree. Even though it looks as though there's a bit of grass around, it's still not 100%, and we still haven't had the rains that we should have to be able to sort out said drought. So hopefully that will change this year, and we'll get a really good summer of rain. It's been a warm winter, and some of the guys in these areas, the local guys, say that when we get these warm winters, then generally it means a fairly wet summer. So let's hope that that's going to be the case, and actually we'll vanquish this drought as soon as possible, because it has been quite hard on the animals, and they've struggled a little bit, and like I say, it's not completely broken yet. Also, the damage that was done during that year period that it was so dry is going to take many years to recover. So the bush is going to take probably at least 5 years to get back to what it was prior to that drought. It's still much thinner than what it used to be. I remember being in this area around 2012, and the bush didn't look anything like this. It was a lot denser, a lot thicker. Grass was very long. In some places it was almost up to your chest in terms of its height. So it is quite long when it's fully grown, and now at the moment it's a little bit more sort of down and dry, and you could, like we were talking about, it's quite barren and open. But still no tracks that I can see of any leopard crossing in this particular section. Maybe it's a little bit further south, which would help us if it was, because that area there gets shorter and shorter in terms of the distance, but it should be able to be easier to find this animal between the road and the next road over. Now, there's tracks for a leopard here, but these look as though they're going the opposite way. So there's tracks for a male leopard crossing into Arathusa, but They don't look very fresh. They look like from yesterday sometime. So I'm going to try to see if there aren't ones coming back, and while I do that, let's go back to James in the Mara.
Strach, just down the way. We'll just get a little bit closer to it. We left the lions because they were fat and heading off-road, which we couldn't do there, so we're going to carry on and see what else we can find along the river. That ostrich is at a great distance, but we'll have a look at it regardless, because anywhere you look in the Mara tends to be quite attractive. Stop, there we go. There it is there. It looks like the size of a small bustard at the moment at this distance. Now, if you were in the Mara and you were in a balloon, which I showed you, of course, at the start, you would have landed by now, and you'd be having some sort of champagne breakfast.
He's pretending to be a cobra.
Yes, he is. He's pretending to be a cobra. That is fascinating. That must be a mating display of some sort. I can't see another one. There must be another one. Let me train my binoculars there. Isn't that fascinating? It's definitely a mating display of some description. Huh. The cobra ostrich. I've never seen that before. You can maybe tell probably from the whistling of the wind in my microphone that it is very breezy out here. I sometimes feel like we're at the coast. Without the sea, of course. It does tend to get quite windy. And then, just in front of us, once we've stopped looking at the cobra ostrich, in the tree there, straight in front, just where that vulture might land, it's going past, there's a batelier, but just keep watching the vulture. White-backed vulture. Beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? Going to land with its friends on some expired member of the migration. Great. Now we can have a look at the batelier. There it is. Now I saw it land there, and it wasn't very easy for the poor bird in this wind, especially with the wings as short as it, or at least with the tail as short as it's got. I think there's another vulture coming into the same area, I think. Here it comes. It's not quite as white a back, and that just means he's a bit younger. You can see how smooth and steady the flight is once they stop flapping. Undercarriage out. Wonderful. Now, the reason I think the batelier got up and flew to where it is that I suspect those vultures came in and chased it off the carcass that it was on there. Very nice. All right, let's carry on. We'll see if we can get a better view of the batelier. Just up here, and it's going for a fly. There it goes. Fuzzman Sparkles, you're wondering as we watch that batelier what my favourite bird is so far in the Mara. I'm going to say the superb starling. I think they're very pretty indeed. Beautiful sort of russet undercarriage, little white stripe, and the rest that lovely starling, kind of iridescent green and blue. There's very shallow, fast wing beats, so distinctive of a batelier, so that even if you see just a small shape in the background, you can tell exactly what it is from the flapping of its wings. Very peaceful here, sitting in the sun. Rather soporific, actually. Good. On we go. Here comes another vulture on the road. Rita, you're wondering the wingspan of a vulture. It really does depend on the vulture. The white-backed vulture has a wingspan just over 7 feet, I think. I'll check for you. But the biggest vulture between the Cape and Lappet-faced, I'll just quickly check what their wingspans are for you. Well, we look at a Ruppel's griffin, I think, on the road there. Is that what it is? No, it's a whiteback. Is it? Yes, it is. Give me 1 second, Rishi. I will sort this out for you. Well done, Fergus. Keeping everyone occupied and entertained. Yes, a whiteback has a wingspan of about 2.2 meters, which is actually, just over 7 feet. But the Lappet-faced, a wingspan of 2.8 meters, which 2.8 meters, about 9 feet. It's quite impressive, isn't it? Yeah, it's about 9 feet. And I just want to check the Cape vulture because they sometimes are bigger than the Lappet-faced. Yeah, 2.5 meters. So about 8 feet. So 7, 8 and 9 feet. Was that? No, that is disgusting. It's dribbling. A dribbling vulture. I've never seen a dribbling vulture before. A dribble man. Look how full its crop is. And you see that sort of bulge below the neck. That's the crop. And it is filled with meat. Well, I'm going to have to get out of the way here. This person. Right, I'm very pleased to say that Scott is still around and in signal, and his cats are unfortunately fast asleep.
Just given a sleep, and that's perfect. They must rest themselves because at some point they're going to start unleashing fury on the local wildebeest in the area. And we are going to be sure to try and get you guys in pole position for that action to happen. I'm actually really looking forward to a little bit of nocturnal action because for the first time I've gone out in the vehicle that's got the best thermal camera, which is an incredibly useful machine, and I feel it will really help us capture these guys hunting at night. It's usually so confusing because once they start running and start working the herds, the dust that the herds kick up make it difficult to work out which is a cheetah or which is a wildebeest and who's who. But with a thermal imaging camera, I think we're going to be able to keep far better tabs on what is going down. Anyway, what we may do is probably take you guys on a short drive. We're gonna think about leaving them and heading out towards our resupply, getting some more hot water for coffee, which will take us through to tomorrow morning. And on the way there we'll take you on a little bit of a safari, because I don't think these guys are going to be too entertaining. But we're not going to go just yet. I'm busy trying to do some homework. I've got my computer. One of the things we do with when spending so long out is trying to make ourselves as comfortable as possible. So this is like a mobile home. Got my computer, mattress over here, pillow. So we're comfortable. And yeah, here's my coffee cup. Easy to deploy. Some of you saw me having a cup of coffee yesterday. Very nice, although the water wasn't very warm this morning. But let me show you something interesting. This is VM's cup. There's a little plug point there. He's got an electric cup that keeps his coffee and hot chocolate nice and hot. So we're getting there. We're certainly going to continue to modify these vehicles as much as we can, and that way we'll never have to go home. I've been telling our boss Graham that he just needs to get a vehicle that comes around with a portable shower, which is like a mobile shower, some food. They can reload us, we can have a shower, and the vehicle can go off to the next the next group of presenters. So that's something that we can dream about, but for now I really am loving being out here with you guys and spending so much time with these wonderful beasts. Alrighty, what else can we see from here? Not too much for now. Hello to Vegas Beauty Snob. What an interesting name you have, and I hope you are well. You'd like to know, why do the cheetahs sleep with their heads up like this? And it's a good question. They can somehow get comfortable. I mean, they look fairly comfortable in that position, far more comfortable than a lion or a leopard would be able to be. But another reason is that because they are under threat from animals like lion and leopard and even hyena to a degree, it makes sense for them to be able to just kind of open their eyes, have a quick gaze around, and make sure everything is safe and sound. But those two that you can see with their heads up do look quite comfortable. They've got a little bit of a shoulder pillow that they're working. You look very comfortable. So yeah, I mean, part, I think, anatomy and part risk from other predators is why they have their heads up. I certainly haven't seen lion or leopard sleeping like that, and I don't think their bigger necks and muscles will allow for it, whereas these more slender beasts seem to be able to pull off the shoulder pillow. Good to have you with us, Vegas Beauty Snob. Have I got your name wrong? Or was that it? It was that, I think. Okay. Whew. Chris, you've just asked me a question that I do not know the answer to, the difference between the skeletal structure of a leopard and a cheetah, but I'll have a stab at it. I mean, they're going to be a lot lighter bones, not nearly as big, and there's something to do with the cheetah's legs that allows them to move at such fast speeds and also prevents them from being able to be good climbers that lion and leopard differ. So there's a difference there between definitely in the legs, but just in general, I mean, they are far more slight. A cheetah could be related to a greyhound, whereas a lion or a leopard could be related to something like a Rottweiler, a bigger set dog, for something that's, dogs are often a very useful analogy to go by because most of us have seen those two species at some point in our lives. I hope that helps, Chris. But I'm by no means a skeletal expert of these creatures. It's getting nice and warm, peeling off the layers bit by bit. Okay, well, I'm not sure what's taking Tristan so long. He's usually a highly effective tracker, and maybe it's just the fact that he doesn't have the pressure from the other Djuma crew there. So I think you guys need to go and ask him yourself what's taking him so long to find the leopard.
Well, we're still trying to see if we can't find this male leopard, but we've got a little bit sidetracked with some magpie shrikes that are sitting in the tree. So they're up on the tree on our right hand side here. They're having a little morning sunshine, taking it easy and calling. I did find tracks of Tingana going, or look like Tingana going northwards towards Impala Plains side, but they cut into this block and I can't find anything else since then. So hopefully he is around here. He seemed to have come out on top of our vehicle tracks on that new road, so he must be close, somewhere close by. It's now just a matter of trying to find him. But you can hear they have this beautiful call, and magpie shrikes are always in groupings together, so there'll be a number of them that are around, and they're all chatting away to one another. Aren't they the most elegant birds with those big long tails that hang down, and you can see fluttering in the breeze as well. Now, there's something else that I've just noticed right here, which I'm going to just try and see if we can't show you guys while they're out and about, because they're very cute little things and they are sunning themselves perfectly for all of us. Alright, so here we go. No, don't go. Stay there. Right, Senzo, you should have a view of some of them there. So little dwarf mongoose that are sitting on top of a mound. Like I say, they're busy sunning themselves, much like a lot of the animals will be doing with this cool wind. It's just trying to get into the sunshine and using that to warm themselves up after a coldish night. And then you'll find they'll be quite active after that. Then they'll start coming out and looking for food items and trying to find various insects and scorpions and snakes and anything really that they can get their hands on, or their mouth on, should I say. And they are the smallest carnivore that we do get here in the southern, well, into the Sabi sands. And in terms of land-based animal, we're not talking about birds of prey or anything like that, but they are the smallest mammal carnivore that we've got that is on land. You can see they're busy little things. They don't really stop too long. There's all their dung, so at least they don't do it inside the mound and clog the tunnels up. They do it on the outside. So you can always find an active dwarf mongoose mound just by looking for all their dung. So that's all that black stuff that you see in front. That's where they will have defecated, and then they just get rid of it. If they do defecate inside, they just get rid of it and eject it out the front of a hole or burrow that they've got. You can see they're all huddled together as well. It's a little on the chilly side, so I'm not surprised they're all together using each other to get a little bit of body warmth and to be able to just stay nice and warm on a cool morning. Oh, they're not the cutest little things though. So I believe the girls in FC, Lou all the way in the Mara and Chantal here in Djuma, all say that they are very cute. Well, yes, girls, they are cute, aren't they? And something about little dwarf mongoose that I endear one to them. They tend to be busy little things, but also quite sociable. So, Gillian, you say their little feet are so cute. They are cute little things, but do you see how long the claws are on those feet? They've got massively long claws, and those claws will help them to be able to excavate, because they'll often dig for prey. So not only will they go not only will they go into holes in the termite mound and excavate that, but they'll also dig for food as well. Now Louise in the Masai Mara, she reckons that the tails look like pipe cleaners. Well, yes, I suppose they do a little bit, Louise. And it's not that we're going to use a dwarf mongoose to clean any pipes or anything like that, but the tail does look a little bit like that, doesn't it? Almost rodent-like, with a bit of hair off the end of it. But I still find them cute. I think they're cool little animals, and such an interesting social structure. And in terms of this big grouping, there is an alpha pair that is dominant over all the others, so alpha male and female, and the way that they become dominant is to groom each other to the point of exhaustion. So when one can no longer groom, that is when they have won the war and they are now the dominant individual. And it almost looks like you've dropped them in a bucket of water after that contest. So quite an interesting way to establish dominance and to become the alpha of a group. It's very unlike everybody else, who tends to fight and bite and claw and push and shove to be able to get their way into dominance. These guys just groom each other, which is quite sweet. There's a mass of them here. There's a lot more than I first thought. They just seem to be piling out of this mound one by one, and you can see how relaxed they start to get. If we first arrived with the noise of the car, they would have run away and they wouldn't have been too interested in sticking around, but now they are truly quite relaxed. Michael, you're wondering if dwarf mongoose ever come into contact with banded mongoose. Michael, I've never seen the two of them interact with one another, but I have seen them both in close proximity, so I'd imagine it does happen. The thing is in this particular area is that the dwarf mongoose tends to be fairly relaxed, but the banded mongoose is quite skittish. We don't see too many sightings of banded mongoose, as we'll see over the next few months. They hardly ever are seen in this area, just fleeting glimpses of them running away, so it's difficult to say, but I'm sure there has been interactions between them. They most certainly live a similar lifestyle. Both are group animals, and they tend to follow around and go along termite mounds and use those to live in, so I'm pretty sure there is some interaction at some stage. The thing about banded mongoose is they're quite feisty little predators, and I would imagine that a dwarf mongoose would be close to being on the menu, so I wonder if the dwarf mongoose don't just run and try and hide from banded mongoose when they come along. It'd be interesting to know, but certainly I've never witnessed any interaction between them, which is not to say that it doesn't happen. But it's all quite sedate at the moment. I think everybody's still waking up. You'll find that they would have been in their mound all night, and it's now time to start grooming and getting themselves ready for the day of foraging, so there's not too much wrestling or playing going on just yet. You find that's generally when they're moving around and actually off the mound itself and are crossing roads and things, then the young ones start to play around and mess around. But now it's just about getting themselves ready for the day ahead. It's almost like it's shower time, and then breakfast time will come after that, and then you'll find that they move around and are far more active than what we're seeing at the moment. So Senzo, you're saying that they hate dust, is that what you said? Oh, heads. So Senzo's just commenting on the dwarf mongoose and their business and the way that they go about things. Right, I think we're going to carry on though and try and see if I can't find where this leopard has decided to go. His tracks were there, so he must be around here somewhere, and hopefully we will be able to find him. I'm just going to turn around because his trucks must have come out. If they don't come out here, they must have crossed over Impala Plain side. We're not that far. Oh, sorry. Just stalled Rusty now. We're not that far from Impala Plain, so if he hasn't come out of there or here, he must still be inside this area, which is good news for us. It should mean that we can hopefully find him. Now I'm going to try and look on Impala Plain, see if I can't find some sort of sign there, and while I do that, let's go across to James Henry, who's bumbling about in the beautiful Masai Mara.
I'm indeed bumbling about at the moment, doing my level best, but we are failing to find a huge amount at the moment. We're heading down towards many of the main crossing points, and we saw two prides of lions around here last night after dark, doing our best to try and catch them hunting. We caught one group hunting, but again, unfortunately, we were in a non-off-roading zone, so we couldn't follow them. Well, there are some Thompson's gazelles, so we'll stop and have a look at them. Still waiting for the really large groups of them to start arriving at the back end of the migration. Let's just ease our way slowly along here in the world's most unsmooth car. There we go. They're over there, Ferg. Looks like a young mum and her fawn. Now, we actually had a very interesting time last night with the two lions that were thinking about hunting. because what they did was they walked past a topi. The topi seemed much too fast for them and sort of ran away, and they didn't give chase. But one of them walked feet away from one of these Thompson's gazelle fawns, which just flattened itself on the ground, and she walked straight past it. It was fascinating. And you can see the light gone behind a cloud. Alrighty, let's go up. There's a huge gathering of vultures and things up ahead. And there's also another line of wildebeest heading down, looks like towards a crossing point. Douglas, you're wondering if the animals are more active if the weather is warmer. Douglas, I'm not sure. I think if it gets hot, then no, they're not. I think they're often on very cold mornings. Animals tend to have a bit of a lie-in. A little bit like us. I found it quite difficult to get out of my bed this morning in the howling wind up top there. And I think it is quite similar for some animals. A number of scavenging birds here. I think there was definitely some kind of death here fairly recently. They're all taking off now. Yeah, they're all starting to leap into the air. Oh, well, they're all flying around us. Very difficult to get, I'm afraid, because we have the roof. So it's quite difficult for us to show anything too high up in the air. Because all you'll see is canvas. All taken to the air now. There's just a little bit of warmth, just creating a little bit of updraft, which of course will help them. The vultures really need that. They're very heavy. And of course we're not only looking at vultures, are we? We're looking at the marabou stork. Closest relative of the New World vultures, as far as I remember. It's only vultures that you have in the States or in South America, or more closely related to the marabou stork that you're looking at there than they are to our vultures. David, you say marabou storks are so ugly. I couldn't agree with you more. I know we're not allowed to say that about nature these days, but I have to agree. A marabou stork for me is quite possibly the ugliest bird in the world. Not quite possibly, I think it is without question the ugliest bird in the world. Their strange bald heads, their habits of defecating on their own legs in order to stay cool, just doesn't lend itself to huge affection, does it? Yeah, Sammy Jane, you say they look like a vulture species. Well, as I was saying, they are very closely related to the vultures of the New World. And if you don't know what the New World is, it is the Americas. I'm not sure why it's called the New World. Well, I know why it's called the New World, but I'm not sure it's that appropriate. Yes, I agree, Lizzie. They're forlorn. You say their heads are kind of sad looking. I think they're very forlorn, miserable looking birds. Well, I suppose if I had to eat what they had to eat, I would also look a bit miserable. The vultures don't look a bit more cheerful though, despite what they have to eat. There we go. And there are two species of marabou stork that you get in India, and they call them adjutant there. The lesser and greater adjutant, which I think is quite funny. I'm not sure what it means. An adjutant, I think it's a military term.